No, they did a whole study.
They do in John Street.
Johnson State.
State road, and we're a town. Really?
But you're saying.
Wow. That's interesting.
Class 4 road. Lowest priority in the states.
Because it's just a true street.
No, that's right. They sure did. I'm not saying no.
So we're gonna talk, where we go, podium or lead?
It should be able to follow you wherever. We have one person on Zoom. I started the live stream.
I'll get you a chicken.
Oh, but then it's just want to hop up. Once everybody starts moving around, it's probably not very helpful. For like anybody listening. It's probably not
John Street is.
Sorry.
Okay. How are you? Oh, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. I don't know the numbers that well.
I'm
What
in yellow.
number?
Good evening, everybody.
On the other side of the street.
Yeah, good. Which number are you? I'm on John Street. I'm on.
It's like a party over here. It's like,
You're
whoa.
on the very end.
So you're included in this because you.
Part of my house, my driveway is on John, Pearl Street, yeah.
Which is good.
So it's 6 o'clock, and we're gonna start the meeting.
They said that I'd be touched, unless they told me they were going to put in the sewer line. Because I don't have the state sewers. Oh, sorry.
So, yeah, no, it's okay, it's okay. Everybody's excited to be here, right?
Right.
So, welcome to the Pearl Street Reconstruction meeting, which has been talked about for how many years now? So, I'm not promising you we're gonna do it either. We're just gonna talk about it. So, we have Dirigo Engineering, who's worked pretty hard at putting the drawings together, and we're gonna go through some of the details of what we're gonna do, but the project overview is pretty much, we're replacing most of the sewer line. We're providing stormwater laterals for people in the places that we can. We're replacing some stormwater line. We're replacing some of the water line, some of the aging water line. And we're going to probably be bidding out a curb on both sides of the road. And we're having a continuous sidewalk from one end to the other of the whole road. And we're going to be redoing the road. So, and we're going to reconstruct the road through something called FDR, which is a recycle. When we determine what the profile of the road is, what and where the gravel kind of stops, we'll set the depth, and then we'll basically go to recycle the pavement into the good gravel, and then we'll grade it all, and we'll tie it all in, and it'll be a brand new road. So there's no esplanade. There's no. The road is pretty much staying the way it is now. We know everybody likes Pearl Street the way it is, and
Yes.
we're not trying to change it. We might try to add some trees in at different locations. We're not taking any trees out. Some of the things that we're gonna review with you is some of the project, I mean, the road might be slightly wider than it is now, just because we have to bring the sidewalk up to the current ADA standards, which is 5 feet. Right now, it's 3 feet in some spots, 3.5, 4, 4.5, it all depends on where you are. But that's the standard, whenever you you're reconstructing a road, you need to bring it up to those current standards.
Because Pearl Street is so long between Park Street and John Street, people get up quite ahead of speed. Is there any chance that there could be a speed bump?
There's no plan for speed bump. So there's all kinds of ways of traffic calming, and you guys have perfected it on Pearl Street. And it's your parking on the side of the road. And with the road the way it is, and the curb line being installed, parking along the curb line, people don't really go that fast on
No,
Pearl
they
Street.
don't.
I mean,
Well.
I can bring you to Mechanic Street, I can bring you to Route 52, and then you'd be like, oh my God, thank God. It's really slow in those places. So,
It's just an occasional where, like I'm at 11, it's an occasional, like, who is that person, and it's
Sure.
not a neighbor, it's always somebody.
yeah, it's always somebody cutting through,
Right.
and that's the way we live in.
Yeah.
And what it is, you need to let the police know, and the police should be, showing up there and monitoring speed. Because you don't have, it isn't a heavily traveled road in terms of cutting through and everything. You don't have the traffic that Mechanic Street has. It's really a nice road, and you really have all the benefits of that people are looking for a neighborhood.
It gets congested when people are doing construction.
Well,
And we get a lot of trucks and and sometimes those trucks.
sure, but you're still like far
Oh, yeah.
better than most neighborhoods, trust me. It's one of the nicest streets in town, and it has the least amount of traffic.
I just wondered what you have as the width of the right of way and the length of the entire road.
So I'm gonna let Tim go over that, and I'll introduce them in a minute, but
Okay.
I wanted to just go over a couple other things. One of the things is that if you have anything that is 3 feet, let's say, on the edge of the road, like flowers or those kinds of things, you're gonna want, and you want those handled in a special manner, you're gonna want to probably dig those up. So when you do go through. The other thing is, we haven't bid this job out. Really, what this meeting is just to really let you know about what our plans are, where we're at in the stage of putting the road out to bid and the construction and engineering of it.
What end of the road would you start on first?
That,
Usually we do that to the contractor.
I'm Aaron Dyer from Dirigo Engineering. I'm one of the primary.
Sorry, Aaron Dyer and Tim Sawtell from Dirigo Engineering. So they're gonna do most of the technical, answer most of the technical questions. I'm Dave St. Laurent, the Public Works Director. So,
As far as where they start and where they end, or what portion they're working on, it really depends on the contractor. There may be a situation where you may have a situation where access to where they're getting the materials or their equipment may be better coming from John Street, maybe better coming from Free Street. It is entirely up to whoever the contractor is that's doing that portion of work. Particular contractors, paving contractors, typically like to pull what I call pull uphill. If they pull downhill, it has a tendency to slide on them, so they typically will start at the low end, which would be Free Street. Slip form curbing, concrete curbing, typically they like to go downhill, but it's easier on the equipment. Concrete has more drag on the equipment. That's the simplest answer to that. We don't know. Yes, ma'am.
Is it the same contractor that we had for Park Street?
No, and not it.
Could you, maybe just for, because this is being recorded and there are a couple people on Zoom, in case the microphone has trouble picking up everybody, would you mind just repeating the question a little bit?
It is the same contractor who did
Park Street,
Park Street.
yes,
Uh,
they did a great job.
It could be. Do you remember who the contractor was?
Dave knows.
they were a paving contractor, they were all states.
I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's possible,
Very good.
it's possible that they're gonna be getting a bid, and it is possible that they could be doing the paving, but we have to competitively get it.
They just were amazing, and they stayed right to the edge of the road, and they worked their way gradually down. They did a decent job on the sidewalk, really good. The previous contractors have done a horrible job on the sidewalk.
We've had quite a bit of experience with Allstate over the years, and they've always done a very good job.
And they gave an opportunity to employ women on there too.
Tim, my boss did.
Yeah, so just to interject about whether they start here or start there, they're gonna be doing sewer work. So that's the deepest pipe in the ground, so that pipe will go in first. So this is gonna be a case of, hey, they just went by my property. And then a couple weeks say, hey, what are they doing in front of my property again? And then a couple weeks, because they're gonna do the sewer work and the storm drain work, and then there's water work to be done, may or may not be all done by the same contractor, because main water it's a big, the water work, however they're dealing with that, it may or may not be the same contractor. So you'll have them doing the various phases, and then once all the buried underground utilities are done, then obviously then you can do the full depth recycle of the pavement and the base pavement on the road, and the curbing, then the sidewalk. So each phase, it does drag on, it doesn't all happen in front of the place at one time. And then of course, hopefully come back and clean up and fix the lawn, from out to the edge. So
Contractors like coffee and donuts.
Want to add to what Tim said, so we haven't, the work we're bidding out, it's the town, we're bidding out the sewer work, okay? That's one part of the bid, and we don't know who that contractor is yet. The town is gonna be doing the stormwater work, so we're gonna be doing the stormwater work ourselves. Main water is a separate entity, they could use the contractor that wins the bid for the sewer, or they could ultimately use a different contractor. So you could see 3 contractors, with the town and 2 other contractors. Then when all that work is done, you're gonna see another contractor who's a paving contractor come in. And then you're gonna see another contractor come in who's the slip form installer, who's gonna do the curbs. So there's gonna be multiple people doing this. And it's a matter of coordination and putting it all together for it to seem like it's only one contractor. But the reality is, there's gonna be multiple people working on this project. And like Rick Seibel, who was a former director for Public Works, he would always send a letter out and said, it's gonna be dusty, it's gonna be dirty, it's gonna be noisy, and it's gonna be no fun. And that's pretty much what it's gonna be. I'm not gonna lie to you, and that's just the way it's gonna, I mean, there's no way around it. It makes noise, it's dusty. We try to maintain, keep the dust down with water, and we'll do all those things, but the reality is, there's gonna be some of that. There's just not really much you can do about, you can't rebuild the whole road, put pipe in the ground, and not have it a little disorderly. It's
And
just.
the sewer and the water pipes go the same hole, and has the water be
No,
on top, no, so you have 2 different operations going on.
The sewer mains and water mains are statute required to be 10 feet apart unless you do.
Oh, so we're gonna be cross by cross.
They will be separated, by at least 10 feet.
Okay,
The only way around that is you have to go through a process to get away from the drinking water program.
right.
In this case, where it's all new stuff, it's pretty hard to get that way through.
You don't want your sewer pipe right next to your water.
No, you don't.
We do have a question from Andy Shaw about how much notice there will be, and then also about parking during construction.
Notice.
So we haven't, Tim, how far are we away from it?
less than a month,
Yeah.
few weeks.
Few weeks, we'll go out to bid. We usually give, 3 weeks for someone to return the bids. We may not get any bids. This is the thing that I don't know. The market right now is so difficult to get contractors to do the work. This might go into next year. And I'm not gonna lie here, I mean, that's a possibility. But the thing is, we're making progress and we're getting closer. And we'll have it put out the bid, and hopefully we'll get a contractor to commit. They may not be able to do it this year or this fall. They may want to do it next spring. But we don't know that. We won't know that till we put out the bid. But as soon as I know, I'll write a letter saying the selected contractor, the dates of the construction, I'll let you know immediately. So I can't give an exact date or time of when that's gonna happen, but it'll probably a month and a half, 2 months. we should-
That'll have to be it'll be on a select board agenda at some point too, right, when
Yeah.
we award
Yeah,
so that would be another opportunity for people to come in and say, you know, when you choose the contractor, make sure that it's this or that, or, I mean, they'll know, there'll be another discussion publicly.
we're gonna talk about this a couple more times before the contract is gonna be coming to knocking on the door.
The other part of the question was parking.
Yeah.
Oh, Parking during
I
construction.
didn't want to answer that. So what usually happens is, and Maine Water will attest to this, I mean, the contractors usually work pretty closely with homeowners. So they'll knock on your door generally and tell you, hey, we're gonna be working in front of your house. You may not want to park in your driveway because we're crossing in front of your driveway. You're gonna park on the side of the road. You'll be able to park on the side of the road like you normally would, because we're not gonna be on the whole road all at once. What will happen is, there will come a time when we're gonna recycle the whole road, when everything's pretty much kind of put in the ground, and then everybody will have to be out of the way, and I'll let everybody know. I'll let everybody know, and I'll say, hey, on this day, at this time, we're gonna need the whole day to just kind of go through and basically go till the whole road, and pull the whole sidewalk up. Please don't park on the road, and try to make accommodations to not be, you know, either be at your house and park in your driveway, and plan on being here for a little while, or plan on being away for, you know, several hours. So we'll let you know when that happens. And then when we do the paving, the same thing will happen. And then we'll be doing some grading after we do the recycling, and we'll let you know when that happens.
How many weeks or months do you think it'll be torn up, the whole road and then the front of each house?
And I would be willing to risk a bet that this road, this length in this place, at a maximum, I would expect 6 weeks.
I didn't quite get, what?
Minimum?
Excuse me, at minimum.
I was gonna say, that's pretty good, man. I was shooting for 2 months. I figured the project will take 2 months, where we'll get binder down, we're hoping, which is the first layer of pavement. And then we'll come back and we'll, you know, we'll do some other work on the sidewalk and those
So
kind of
it'll be torn up in front of everybody's house for 2 months?
No, so the way it'll work is, we'll Maine Water, or if Maine Water's contractor and our sewer contractor
Yeah.
are the same contractor, they'll saw cut where the pipes are gonna go, and they'll dig those areas up, and then they'll put the material back in at the end of the day. So the road won't be at this big long trench from one end to the other. It's gonna be in sequence moving down through the road. And then we'll come in, Public Works, and do the stormwater. And that's gonna be a little here, a little there, because we're not going digging all the way down to the road. We're actually installing more like lateral lines that are going towards your house from the center of the road, and putting a stub at the end of your, property line. And we're gonna be probably putting those stubs in between your budding neighbor, so that we don't have to put one in front of each house, because that doubles the amount of pipes we have to put in. And then what that is for is so that you can comply with the requirement to no longer dump into your sewer line if you have a sump pump. So some locations, like on the Elm Street side, we don't really necessarily need to do that, because you have a place to put your water, your storm water, that you're pumping with a perimeter drain. But other places, like on the other side, really don't have a good place to put the water. And we'll talk with you, and we're gonna install a lateral in there, and then you'll be able to kind of tie in your, you know, your sump pump or whatever stormwater, your gutters into that line. The other thing that we're doing as part of this bidding process is we're trying to carry a number for the contractor to provide to you as a price per foot to replace your sewer lateral going from your property line to your home. So when we go through and replace the sewer line, we're also replacing the lateral lines. And one of the reasons we're doing that is the town has a very aging sewer system. A lot of it's made up of clay, it's cracked and broken, and it allows a lot of water to get into the system. And then it goes to the treatment plant, or some of it never even makes it to the treatment plant. It goes to the lift station, and the lift station can't keep up with it, and it bubbles out of the stormwater, the manholes, and goes into the water, in the ocean. So we're trying to fix that problem by taking the water out of the sewer system. But the way we're doing that is we're replacing the sewer line that's compromised, so the groundwater doesn't get in. So when we go through and do this, we're probably gonna camber your line, and we're gonna let you know if you have a line that's broken, and you're gonna wanna replace that line at that point, because you're not gonna get a better deal than the price per foot you're gonna get when the contractor's right there on site, because you won't have to pay the mobilization. He's already gonna be right there. He'll be able to, he'll say, all right, you want me to replace your shoreline to your house? And he'll do that piece, that piece will be yours that you pay for. And if you have a financial problem with that, you'll have to come see the city, and we have funds that are available for people that can't afford to do that work. Our objective is to eliminate the groundwater that's getting into the into the sewer system. And it's to provide you with a stormwater outlet so that you're not putting the stormwater or any groundwater into the sewer line. Okay?
So I have a catch basin in front of my house.
Mhm.
Now, where does most of that water go? Right to go into the,
It goes across the street down into the.
well, I know where that one goes, but on the other one,
Down the
does
Goose River.
it go in the river? Does it go in the harbor?
No, the Magana watershed. Goose
She's
River is the-
on the other side.
She's on John's side.
Oh, that's right then. That's right where the line is. Oh, yeah,
All right.
I stand corrected.
So. did I
No,
answer-
that's fine. I just said that it doesn't go into the sewer system. It drains out to the harbor or the river, right?
Right, at your location at that end of
I know
town,
where it goes down to John.
it goes that way, but other people's, that are on the Elm Street side, on Free Street's end, that all runs along a little brook and then goes into Free Street.
Oh, okay. I know where that
I'll tell you a little
goes.
story. It goes into Free Street and it runs through some culverts and some ditches. And then it ends up in the parking lot where the jack is, across the street from that. And then it overflows that parking lot and it
Oh.
runs and floods Eric's barber shop.
Oh,
So
okay.
just so you know, that's what's happening. We're trying to fix that too. So all this is part of fixing these things and they're all connected.
Yeah, one needs a haircut, doesn't one, so.
What was that?
One needs a haircut, doesn't one, so we need to.
That's right. We need a place to cut our hair. We don't want to be wet when we do it.
Some of us need places to cut the hair.
So, all right, I want to comment here. the whole meeting about this.
If you allow me to, I want to repeat a couple things that Dave said, because I think he's covered a lot in a hurry. And I'll try to hit the high points one more time. This is a repeat. I need to hear it twice. So the services, the laterals from the mains in the street to your house, the part from the main to the right-of-way line, that's paid for by the town. If it's a sewer lateral that needs to be replaced, the town replaces it to the right-of-way. And they're gonna also put in laterals for storm drain. If there's storm drain in front of your house, they'll run a lateral to the right-of-way line. And they mentioned we're gonna try to field position these, they'll be 6-inch in diameter, so they're big enough for a couple of homes, 2 homes, you and your neighbor, to perhaps share. We'll figure out where the logical place is, so your sump pump can go in. So the part to the right-of-way line, in the street to the right-of-way line, paid for by the town. If you need piping on private property, on your property, we'll include a price in the contract, and the contract will give us a per foot price for that. But the cost on your private property, as he's on to, is generally, it's gotta be paid for by you, but there are provisions, and see him with the town, if you need assistance in that regard. I'm assuming the water company will probably tell you, but their part in the right of way would be paid for by the utility. Anything on private property would be paid for by you if it needed to be replaced.
So the water is going to be replaced through the water lines
Most of the
coming in.
way, they can maybe give us a summary of where they're starting and stop. I don't think they're going the entire way. But I believe they're going to replace their main and try to keep the existing one in service. Obviously, they'll keep you in service
Right.
for the most part, the whole way, the whole time, but they're gonna try to leave the existing main in service. But, stuff's buried.
Yeah,
Every now
yeah,
and then, it's not really what we thought it was, there's problems, but anyway. So they'll either do temporary services or whatever they need to do in service. So anything in the right of way is paid for by you, actually, part of your utility bills, but not out of your own personal checkbook.
We're paying for it one way or another.
yeah, right.
So,
Now, what is the right of way? How many feet is the right?
Well, I don't know what's the
Well,
right of way. The
yeah.
right of way is based off of, it was based off of the plan done by Governor Dorsey 3 years ago. And they base their information on the tax maps, and it works out to be basically 25 feet from the center line of the road to the right of way on either side, so 50-foot total, is what they estimate.
so the town owns
On the
50.
right of way
They
of
own
Pearl
it or
Street,
they have a right of way?
They own it.
the right of way on Pearl Street is not 50 feet.
It's not 50 feet?
No, it's not.
Well, that's the information we have based off of what they. what they're
Yeah,
charging.
that was pretty little.
It's almost 50, it's 49.5.
Yes, it's 24.75 each side.
It's Three Rod Road.
Three
As
Road.
opposed to Chestnut where it's 60. Did you know that?
Chestnut.
Chestnut Street is 60.
So that- and that's
Anyway,
down in four.
how long is the whole street? You know that
It's about
number?
four,
Just about
the
4,000.
street's 4,000 feet long.
Is it, I have two figures that I found in old town records. One is stated it was 3,900 feet long and the other 4,600. Do you know which it is?
4,600?
39 and 4,600.
I don't know where the 4,600 come from. 3,900 would be more to what we found out there. It's 3,000 from the center line of John Street to the center line of Free Street is 3,983.
Okay.
So maybe we give Mike a chance.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna introduce Mike. Mike Ames is from Maine Water, and he can kind of maybe go over a little bit of the water company's part. You might want to, if you have water related questions.
Good evening, Mike Ames from Maine Water, I'm the superintendent, and as everyone mentioned here, our plan is to go from Free Street up to Applewood Apartments to replace the main line there. And as the gentleman mentioned, the engineer, is that we'll be replacing our service line that goes from basically the main to your curb, so basically to your property line. That's our responsibility there. Anything beyond that point, if you guys wanted to do something, would be up to you with a private contractor. We are trying to seek a coordination project with the town of Camden. The reasons for that is basically it's a cost benefit. It's a much easier coordination project with contractors as well. If we can have one contractor doing both sewer and water, it saves Dave and I a lot of headaches. But again, we're going out to bid. We're going to try to go on the same bid package, but Maine Water is a separate entity, as Dave mentioned. So we do what's in our best interest as well as the town does. So. But the main reason is again, we have a project list, basically, we have a capital plan where we take a look at all of our roads, or all of our water lines, and we also talk to Dave, we talk to all road commissioners locally to see what they have for issues going on with the roads. So we try to team up our projects at the same time as theirs. It usually ends up being a better project in the end, and that way we're not tearing up a road that Dave wants to take care of in 3 to 4 years. We try to do it at the same time. So, but yeah, that's where we're at. We're in the same position as Dave. We hope this goes out to bid. We hope to find a contractor. We all have contractors we like to work with, but we try to do a fair bid process as well. So hopefully we'll get a few bids and we'll have to kind of see what happens at that point. But the unfortunate part is we're already into May. And we're not going out to bid line until the end of the month, so it's not really, if you really get into the construction season, it doesn't give us a whole lot of time, but as Dave mentioned, the engineers will seek to do this as efficiently as possible and as, few problems as for homeowners as possible, and communication there goes a long way. So as we do approach your neck of the woods on the street, we definitely will be touching base with everybody to coordinate getting in and out of your driveway and letting you know what's going on. Again, communication, we always have Corey Fogg here is one of our foremen. He deals with a lot of our capital projects, so you'll see his face a lot going up and down the street. So don't be afraid to approach him with any questions you may have, and you can always reach me at the office as well. So we're readily available, so we definitely want to make this as smooth as possible. We understand and appreciate the avenues that Pearl Street provides to residents and commuters through town and stuff, and we do realize that it is a small street. Once you start getting a lot of people parking on the road, it gets condensed pretty quick. So we certainly can appreciate, what you guys are willing to go through for the next few months here. So, yes, sir.
There was, my understanding was that when the sewer lines replaced, there's going to be an evaluation of the line from the right of way to the property. Are you going to do the same thing with the water lines?
Yes.
I have no idea whether my water line should be replaced or not. Can you tell me that?
Yeah, so the lateral that goes from the main to the property line, we'll be replacing all those regardless of their condition. Yeah, basically Pearl Street contains some of the oldest main that we have in town. It's a 1887 main line that goes up the street, so
That was what I was gonna ask.
it's part of the improvement project. If you recall, we were on Free Street last year. Dave and I tried to do Pearl Street a couple years ago, but with the pandemic and everything, it really kind of
Yeah.
set things back quite a bit. So this has been an ongoing effort for some time, but once we get to the property line, basically, which is your curb stop, we may or may not be able to see what's beyond that. And, if we do have problems, we can certainly let you know for sure. So yeah, it'll be a more.
You'll take it to where the valve is?
Excuse me?
It's where the valve.
Yes, correct, where the curb stop is.
Will you be moving the location of the valves or?
No, they'll basically stay in the general same locations as they are.
I know my line was replaced, I think the whole thing was replaced in 88.
Yeah.
So, from certainly the house to the valve.
Yep.
So,
I also know there was a lot of ledge in front of my house that they couldn't put it any deeper. So I have a pump pumping it from my house up the street.
Yeah.
Because I'm on 88 Pearl Street, but it's new. It's only 2.5 years old.
Yeah, so if you may have noticed that we were there about a month ago now, we hired a company to do ledge probing for us to get an idea. Our goal was basically to stay right in the same area of the main we are now, because that will save us a lot of headaches and you a lot of pain as well. So we don't have to do temporary lines. So what we'll do is we will have some shutdowns where, hard to say how many at this point, but let's say half a dozen. Those could last anywhere from 4 to 8 hours, where basically we have to connect the existing water to another pipe, basically to keep you guys in service. That prevents us from having to do a lot of temporaries, which would be a nightmare, basically, visually and a headache for everybody involved. Would be a lot of pipes, so we're trying to avoid that. So
Typically, what are the service pipes made of that take from the right of way into the house?
that's CTS plastic.
So
Back, even back in 1860, they did.
No, the main line will be ductile iron. The main line that runs up and down the street is ductile iron. Yeah, the existing line right now is cast iron pipe. So it ages over time. It's actually aged really well considering, but we have experienced some breaks in that road in the last several years. So it's one of the reasons why we're on the street. So yes.
How far down is the 1887 line?
It's usually about 4 feet, maybe deeper in some places. Yeah. Depending on where the ledge is, sometimes it can come up a little bit shallower, but the general rule is we aim to get below the frost line, so we're generally about 4 feet.
And is the replacement pipe non-toxic?
Correct. It's ductile iron. It's a commonly used pipe throughout the country. We use it in Maine here all the time. Standard practice.
I mean, up to date, it's non-toxic, we probably used a lot of things that now are considered not a good idea.
Yeah. So basically, the pipe that we use is almost irrelevant to a certain degree because we're treating the water to begin with anyway. So, but the pipe is ductile iron. Again, it's a standard pipe. It's used every day. It's as safe as we can use. It's structurally sound. It's long lasting.
What's it called?
Ductile iron.
It's iron?
Correct.
called ductile, or is it lime?
Cement line.
Oh, okay.
We have a question on Zoom from Karen. What was intended by shade tree enhancement?
So currently, right now, we have an effort where we're trying to plant more shade trees and trying to plant over 50 shade trees this year. And we have the shade tree expert right here, Nancy, who lives on the road, but Pearl Street used to have a lot more trees on it. There was a bigger canopy.
They've got a bunch of them down.
And we may never see it, but maybe our children would see a canopy like that again if we make an effort to plant more trees in places where the trees are no longer. And some of it were limited by the power lines, but we have a group of people and part of the conservation group that's newly formed or coming back together. And we actually just had a meeting this week where we're going through and we're identifying locations. So if there's people that live on the road that would like to have a shade tree either put on in the right, we'd like to put one in the right of way, but if it's even on their private property, we'll even talk about that. And our objective is to put as many shade trees in as we can.
Who's responsible for the upkeep if it's in the right of way?
If it's in the right of way, it's the town's responsibility. I'm the tree warden, so you come see me.
Okay,
I work with Doug and other contractors in the area. We look at the tree and determine whether or not it can be, whether or not it has a problem and whether or not the problem can be corrected. If it can be corrected, that's our first course of action. We correct it, we'll cable it, we'll do different things to it.
right.
Try and maintain it and keep it alive as long as you can. But then it reaches a point where it becomes dangerous, then we'll remove it.
Right.
And we'll have a contract.
Do you anticipate any trees coming down
No,
from this current
no.
survey? They're all good.
No, we fortunately are able to do this work without taking any trees down now. Like I said earlier, now there's some bushes and shrubs maybe, or little, flowers and smaller plants that are in the right of way that are close to the sidewalk. And, the right of way is the town's property. You really aren't supposed to be putting anything in there. Everybody does. It's not like you're breaking the law in theory, but it's really the town's property. And the reason for that is so that we can do these things that we're doing. We can improve your infrastructure. So we'll ask you to move those things out, please. And we'll put everything back the best we can. I'm gonna take a video of the entire road, the way it exists now, so that we can go back and look at it. Our objective here is to make you happy. We want to do it and do a good job, so.
I think it's awesome. Curious about my mailbox, which I'll move, but if it's kind of in line where the power poles are, I'm probably safe.
Well, you know what, the best thing to do is let's wait till the road is built. And then let's talk to the post office about where they would like to see the mailbox, because they have their own set of criteria.
Yeah, because it was new 2 years ago, so they told me where to put it. So
Most probably, we're gonna move your mailbox, I'm guessing. I don't know
Okay.
that. There's a good chance that mailboxes will get moved.
Oh, you mentioned we moved them, so I didn't
Oh,
know.
no, we would probably
You'll
move the
move them.
mailbox.
Yeah, that's a particular situation that mailboxes are, as a matter of fact, I believe we may have missed one or two, but there are mailboxes shown on the plan. And they're there for a reason, so that A, the contractor or working knows there's one there, and B, we can decide as things progress, as things get laid out, where to move those structures. So that we're meeting what the post office wants for rules and what best fits the sidewalk, if it's on the sidewalk side, and so on and so forth.
Is the road itself going to be wider than it is now? You said the sidewalk needed to be 5 feet wide.
So the road into places, because the road's not perfectly the same width from one end to the other. We're trying to take a little of that out and try and kind of keep it more consistent, because we're putting the sidewalk and widening a little bit. So there'll be a foot here, a foot there, but we're not taking a large amount of property, or we're not going into the right of way any more than we have to. It's not a lot, it's minimal. It's not like we're going 3 feet or anything like that. We're a foot to either side.
I would say a general rule of thumb from end to end, it should be no more than 2 feet on either side of the road to be the extreme. It's not 2 feet, but just to think about the corridor in your mind, take what's out there now and go, okay, if it's within 2 feet of that existing backward sidewalk or existing pavement, then that's in the limbo.
If you look at your telephone poles, there's actually a little bit of property from the pole. It's not anything that you're. I'm sorry. Doug, go ahead, you were next.
This reminds me that when we redid Route 1 on High Street north of town, we have some specifications that we use in order to protect tree roots. And I can get those specs to you, so maybe
That'd be
that'll come
helpful.
in handy for this project.
Yeah, we want to be real careful when we dig the sidewalk part up, because that'll be the part that may be a little bit close to the tree line. But we'll do that.
Well, it's not the trunk, but it's that,
root.
the tree roots are mostly near the surface of
Yeah.
even large trees.
Mhm.
And the critical root zone is, if you think the outer part of the canopy all the way around.
It's as big as the top, right?
Move in on that, on the roots, then you can end up gradually killing the tree.
We don't want to do that.
So it's gonna be tricky,
Oh, yeah.
because as they excavate, they need to keep a watch if roots are being exposed, and if they are, that's the time to check with the experts about how there's some certain things that can be done to protect the roots. Otherwise, we could lose more shade trees.
Fortunately, I know someone that can help with
I wanted to ask you if, just if I could take a minute to mention Pearl Street. So Pearl Street was
that. Nancy,
originally,
could you come up here and talk in the mic so everyone could hear you on the TV? Or I can bring the mic to you.
I think we can actually hear her. Okay.
oh, nice, okay. Yeah. So, Pearl Street was non-existent and the Richards owned all of it. Richards are the original settlers of Camden. And most of us who lived here a while know that they had their property down in the center of Camden. But also they owned all the way up to Pearl Street, out to Mechanic and over to Free roughly, and then continuing up Pearl, what is now Pearl, Mary Spring. So there were two brothers, Samuel and James, and the house that we live in at the corner of Park and Pearl was Samuel's, the house Samuel built. And the one at the red house out on John Street is the one that James built, that is now Joanne Simon's house.
This one here, Nancy's talking about, and then there's this one here.
Right, so they're very old cakes. They date from about 1800 and are among the oldest houses in town. So what there was at that point was a cart path coming up from Free Street and heading past both brothers' houses out to the end. Then around 1840 or so, they began selling off properties along the street. And in the around 1850, Pearl Street was laid out as a street. And it's actually surveyed to a large rock at the corner of our L. It's on the survey for Pearl Street. Basically, our L is partly in the right of way. And because it predates the street. So it's really pretty interesting. And I used to take walks with a pedometer and years ago. So I walked down to Free and would turn around and come back. And I do the same out to John, just as a route. And I found out it was exactly the same number of steps.
We validated it, and she's correct. Her house is exactly in the middle, from that end to that end.
So the brothers divided up the property precisely.
Yeah,
And there's a granite marker in the ground out near the corner. of
Nancy, I
our
won't lie, when you
property.
told me that, I was kind of like, yeah, sure it was. And then I told these guys, and we rolled it all up, he's like.
They said 100 acres.
So,
If you go back to 20 years,
There's a
ago,
granite marker.
they had that 100 acres each.
Are in it.
And the father,
well, you were
James,
correct.
had 100 acres inside town. He had,
So.
his house was torn down.
I think we had one question, sir, right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I apologize if it was already asked before. The sidewalk
Oh,
extension.
before that, he had a house
all the
in
way to
Burn
John
Ridge.
Street,
All the way to John
On
Street,
the same side.
on the same side,
Right, okay.
okay? So the objective is to.
Can you repeat that, Dave? So in case anybody here, I wonder, I haven't gotten any complaints yet, but.
So the sidewalk is gonna go from one end to the other, and it's gonna all be on the same side of the road that it currently is, on the Free Street end. And our goal is to create continuity throughout the whole town and connect the Route 1 and Hannaford all the way to the downtown. So the only piece we'll have missing after this, after we do the Route 1 sidewalk project this summer, which is gonna go from Corey Hill to Maritime Farm.
Oh, that's.
That'll be done, and we'll just have the John Street section left, and there'll be a nice corridor going, you'll be able to walk the whole thing.
You're gonna have a sidewalk on John Street?
We're shooting for John Street in the next big project, so John Street, we're gonna try and put a sidewalk and sewer in that, but there's nothing that's, firmed up just yet, but we're talking with the state.
Between
Yes,
Trail and Route 1, not further than that, of the mechanic.
I didn't understand the question. Yeah.
You're thinking of putting the sidewalk on John Street between Carroll and Route 1 or?
All the way to probably more up to Symington, all the way, you know, we wanna, there's an assisted living home up there, and
Yeah, yeah.
there's a great need for people with disabilities to be
Right,
able
yeah,
to
yeah.
walk to Hannaford and get to those locations, and they really can't do that right now.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And they do it on the street.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's people that, you know, they're in the middle of the road with a wheelchair trying to get to the store, which, you know, we really should have sidewalk. So that's our objective, we're working with the state, like I was saying. There's a couple big pots of money that are out there from the federal government. And we've met with them, and we're in the pre-planning stages, there's nothing really set in stone, but things are looking positive. But this is all part of our future plans to kind of make everything connected for pedestrians to be able to get out of town.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Wow.
yeah.
I live on Lower Pearl Street, and obviously the street is downhill, so by the time the cars go down, it's treated as a bypass to Route 1, and it's a real speed problem. Yeah, so having a nice smooth surface is probably gonna
Make them go
make the
down.
speed problem even
Were you
worse.
here earlier when I talked a little bit about that? I think you might have come in a little bit late. I would say you guys have the speed control down packed with the parking on the side of the road. That really kind of helps with that.
We also have Applewood and you know, with the traffic in there.
Sure, but
We stagger the parking in our neighborhood to,
that's helpful, you know, that really kind of
It
slows
calms the
the traffic down, you know?
There's still a speed problem, and then 50 feet down my house, they slam the brakes on because they're at 3 speed,
Well,
they have to stop.
You know what I say in that situation, you need to call the police, because I mean, that's in reality, they're the ones that are controlling the speed limit. We can do things that help with, you know,
Can you put a speed bump in?
there's no speed bump plan. I had a bad experience with speed bump.
Going too fast.
What was it?
So everybody know about the speed bump in Rockland, right? You guys remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, they called it the speed jump. And we, you know, there was a lot of unhappy people with the speed jump, so.
right, but a speed bump is really one that's just like in England, we call them sleeping policemen. Basically, you just slow everybody down a bit to stop them, especially when they get past the four-way stop and they're gone.
Yeah,
Down to Free Street.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
coming down Pearl between Free Street.
there's all kinds of ways of slowing traffic down. You can take bollards, you know, like the delineators, and you can put them at the end of the road and narrow the end of the road up.
Speed tables.
You can put speed tables. There's multiple ways of slowing traffic down.
I just don't think it's right that you'd expect us to park our cars on the road just to slow the traffic.
Well, I'm not. I was being
I
a little
But
kind
it's
of
not
tongue in
just
cheek
our
there.
cars, it's all the contractors that are constantly there on either side of the road, parking on the sidewalk.
I'm gonna say you guys have one of the most well-controlled neighborhoods in town in terms of other ones I see. There's other people that, I mean, the people speak through their neighborhoods at a much higher rate than Pearl Street. Pearl Street is in really good shape in terms of that. And I'm not diminishing your concerns with your speed, people speeding, but people speed.
Yeah.
And that's a fact, but people
And
don't
I agree,
speed
it's
that
a
much.
police issue.
Yeah, they don't speed that much on Pearl Street.
Tell them what to do about I heard parking on the sidewalk mentioned,
Yeah.
which I agree is a big problem. Maybe you should tell them what the proper course of action there is.
If you guys see parking on the sidewalk, you're supposed to call dispatch, because nobody's supposed to be parking on the sidewalk. The sidewalk is not constructed to the standards of the roads, okay? It's just the way it is.
I agree.
There's some houses, there's some guys down on between Maple Street and Park Street that are parked on the side of the street, almost all summer long.
On the side of the street or on the sidewalk,
On the side of the street.
that's okay. It's okay. to
All
park-
summer long, and they don't, sometimes they move them and overnight and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But you're going down the street and it's, they're there, and sometimes there's people over here too, and you're trying to get through.
Right, that really slows people down too, though, right?
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, you have to literally stop to let the car go by you.
Yeah,
And it's a nuisance, and they use it as their parking lot. And
Well,
they have
street
for
parking is
years.
allowed. I mean, street parking is allowed
To an
throughout town. No,
extent,
it's
I
absolutely.
believe you, but to actually make it your parking lot, and that's what they do.
Yes,
It's their parking lot,
yes.
and they never move the vehicle. Actually, they throw junk in the back of the truck because it's their garbage cans. Well, it is too, it's a red truck.
So-
They never move it.
So listen, you guys have a great neighborhood. I mean, let's think about all the good things in the neighborhood. I mean, you
But
really,
it does slow the traffic
you
down.
really do. I mean, you guys have a great, you have the nicest, one of the nicest neighborhoods in the town. I
We
mean,
do.
I mean, I mean, you gotta be thankful that you got a beautiful neighborhood, you got nice neighbors, you got a great public works director. You got, he's rebuilding your road. I mean, what else could you ask for?
Awesome.
Just a shame.
No, it's totally awesome.
To get through it.
I think we can all do our part and tell people to, you know, if you have people, just communicate to them that, you know, that you don't want them to speed, you want them to slow down. If you see people speeding, take their plate numbers out, call the police. If people park on the sidewalk, let the police know. You know, work with me if you think that there's an idea you might have for, you know, doing something a little bit creative, slowing the traffic down. Is, you know, we can paint lines, we can put bollards up, we can do different things like that.
When I moved here, there were no stop signs on, those were all new, it was just a straight run.
Oh,
There was
wow.
no stop signs on Pearl
I
Street.
know, really.
Not fast.
It's really speeding,
Way
not
fast.
fast.
No.
So I don't want to take too much more time here. This is kind of, we're probably gonna wrap this up.
So the plan that we've got the entire street here, and if you would like to look at your home, you know, the starts with number 1 at the bottom and goes to whatever 93 or something at the top. If you want to find it, we can answer any questions you might have. There's a magenta line showing roughly a foot or two where we think the limit of construction will be. If you have questions about, you know, how wide is it in front of my house, et cetera. If you want to pigeonhole Dave about something, speeding or whatever, you can do it.
Randy Gagnon.
Yes, Randy.
They're speeding.
I would mention that the sidewalk width of 5 feet is because the Americans with Disability Act rules, so we just got to comply with the federal rules. The truncated domes, you know, the bumps on the sidewalk at the end before you step out onto the street are there at several places. They're the little green, they're little green rectangles on the plans with little dots on them, in case you're wondering what that is. They'll be, we don't put them in every driveway, but they're at the really wide driveways, like at the Legion, you know, and at the streets where you're crossing Park Street. In case you're wondering what those are. The slope of the sidewalk, when it crosses your driveway, has to be consistent. It can't be, has to meet the 2% or less slope or whatever it is. And sometimes, because of the way the grade in the street is, your driveway might need to be regraded outside the right-of-way line. And so those will be, if a magenta line goes beyond the right-of-way line in front of your house, that's what that's showing. So what we'll have to do is get you to sign a little grading easement that says the town is permission to regrade your driveway. And if it's a paved driveway, they'll repave it as far as it's regraded, you know, 10 feet or whatever. So the grade can match. You don't want to sign it, but you have a little drop off. But we try to, you know, we try to make it as smooth as we can. But that's what that is. We have questions about that. So it's not very far in any of them, 5 or 6 feet or something like that. Just so that there's a smooth transition down or up to your existing driveway.
We're gonna probably disrupt the grass, you know, a little bit to one side of the road and the other side of the road. We'll reseed that, and in the end, that'll be the last thing we do. So that'll, you know, that'll get taken care of also.
Is this map available in the town office for viewing in a later date?
There'll be a set of plans left here of this, and actually more detail because it has the profile and the cross sections. Because you have to go from sheet to sheet. Yeah, there's a PDF.
Yeah, you can zoom in.
It'll be next time.
Pretty.
How are the walkways treated, like from your driveway, from your front door, you know, like we have this whole
That's a good question.
sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's the road.
As a matter of fact, on a number of areas, you can actually see where this magenta line that run here goes up or down or across an existing walkway or stairs or something along that line. Whenever there's an existing, there are actually, side note, there are a few walkways that don't actually go out to the road now. we're gonna connect those. So that's part of this, it's more so on would be the Mechanic Street side or the north side of the road. Wherever we come across an existing walkway from a house, we will tie all those in and do our best to get the grade, so it's not some exorbitant number, to try to make it as gradual as possible. The goal is to try to not increase over what ADA would say this is a violation, or this would be a grant, or those types of things. All right. We'll do the best we can do to do that. Any driveway, or excuse me, any walkway that goes out to the road now will continue to go to the sidewalk or to the roadway. And if it doesn't go up to the roadway now, then it will be extended so it does.
So the curb will go
Yes.
down to the different.
Well, if you're on the sidewalk side, there won't be any curb because it'll match in the back side. On the other side of the road where there's curb, the curb will drop down. You have your walkway and it'll come back up.
So the curb will, on the opposite side, will run all the way up the length of the street,
Yes,
Potentially,
potentially.
potentially.
because curb is very expensive. We're bidding
Right,
it,
at my house, I don't like it.
we're bidding it both sides. We don't know what's gonna happen when we send this up a bid, so we really only need it on the side of the sidewalk. But we're trying to put it in on both sides.
One of the,
Is there reasons for the water runoff or?
Well, I mean, it is one for the runoff, it is also for, usually you put your stormwater up against your curb, it's usually up against your sidewalk. But it does help with.
curbing works really well to keep the road water in the road. One other, just a note to this, if you do peruse these plans or this wide plan here, these are not final plans. They will be, particularly, there will be adjustments done to them when those final plans are done. And with an engineer stamp on it, the town will have copies so that they can be viewed. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to point out that our house being the oldest house and the first house on that property that everybody else now is on Pearl Street, we sit right near the road,
Yes,
and we're gonna need very special treatment
yes.
and no incursion from what is there at the end of the L, that space we have, and it will need to be treated as carefully as trees.
Yes.
Or because you're gonna be working right on top of our house, and it's an old house, you know, that I'm concerned about the vibrations of some of the equipment that goes to our house without enough earth to absorb the vibration before it hits the foundation. And things like that, so I do want to be sure that you guys take that in mind and have some special plans for working past our L.
I can address a portion of that. In the case where you have an old foundation or you have an older home, not necessarily the oldest, but any older home, it is a very good idea for everybody involved, the homeowner and the contractor and the owner, to have documented visual information. So that if there is damage after, you look at your foundation wall and there's no crack or no problems, and then the contractor goes by and pounds and snarls and growls. After they go by, you go back, now there's a crack there. Visual evidence of pre and post is very handy for everybody involved.
Of course.
So like he had mentioned earlier, he's gonna video the whole road. It's also going to be photographs of touchy areas, what we would call touchy areas, or endangered areas, I guess is the best way to put it, beforehand, before a contractor shows up on site. Before
I
they
just want to have you guys work out, and I know it can be done, because I work in the engineering facilities. You work out and engineer something special to go by an old house that's that close to the road.
Yes.
Predates everything else, so we can see that there are going to be some special care taken there.
There's always, as you know, there's always language we can add in specifications and on the
We want
project.
to prevent anything happening.
Is there gonna be any blasting, you think? Because
We don't
it's all
anticipate
ledge.
any.
Almost the whole road is all, ledge.
We don't anticipate anything, and I believe, I can't remember what the numbers were you guys had for the ledge roads.
We didn't hit any ledge.
You didn't?
Not in the road, so,
So you can ask questions while you're looking at the drawings. If you have specific questions, ask them now, or might as well, if you want to look at the drawings and ask questions of either Aaron or myself or Dave or whatever. Guys in the water.
And then for anybody watching the recording later or on Zoom, who should they get in touch with if they're looking at something and want to ask a question? Is that,
Yeah, they can.
should that go to Dave or should that go to you
They
guys?
should
or-
probably go to Dave first. They have to send it, and Dave can email us the question.
Okay, great.
So can I ask a question? Question is what does that mean?
Okay, this is the, where we anticipate that's the limit of construction. But we'll have that in the driveway. Right on this way. Is this your place?
Yeah.
So we just gonna do a little regrading of the driveway.
Exaggerate. This is. The water comes down